mostly ఎట్లా ప్లే అవుతుంది ప్లే చేయండి ప్రైమ్ ప్లే దానికి కంటెంట్ ప్లే అవుతాయిరా అది ప్లే అయితే మనకి ఇక్కడ దీన్ని చెప్పాలి ఏంటంటే ప్లే అవుతుంది లాస్ట్ లో ఉంది లాస్ట్ స్టార్టింగ్ లో ఎంత షేర్ చేయాలి కింద షేర్ ఆప్షన్ వస్తుంది గ్రూప్ లో షేర్ చేస్తాం అవసరం లేదు చూసేవాళ్ళే ఉంటారు. ఫార్వర్డ్ కొట్టేసి
We're so furious.
Se ajeita, coro. Se ajeita, eu quero também, mas o Estado não tem direito de matar ninguém, aqui não tem pena de morte, mas segue o pensamento, o desejo de matar de um capitão Nascimento. Sem treinamento se mostra incompetente, o cidadão por outro lado se diz impotente, mas a impotência não é uma escolha também de assumir a própria responsabilidade, hein? Você tem em mente, se é que tem algo em mente, porque a bala vai acabar ricocheteando na gente, grandes planos, paparazzo demais, o que vale é que você tem e não o que você faz. Celebridade é artista, artista que não faz arte, lava o pilates achando que já fez sua parte. Deixa pra lá, eu continuo viajando, enquanto eu falo besteira, nego vai, então deixa.
అదే వచ్చిందిరా, తీసేసాను నేను వెంటనే. అదే డిలీట్ అని వచ్చింది, నా దాంట్లో డిలీట్ అయింది. ఎలా ఇప్పుడు ఏం చేయలేం కదా, అందుకని మళ్ళీ పోస్ట్ పెట్టాను. వస్తుందా మాట్లాడు. స్టార్ట్ అయింది కదా, స్టార్ట్ చేస్తున్నా. Hello everyone. Hello. Good morning. So welcome you all to the online beginner DSLR photography session. If you have any technical difficulties, you just tell me in the chat window. If you are unable to hear, or if you have any connection issues, you can just tell me in the chat window. I'll just check it. Are you able to hear me properly? You can just type in chat window yes or no. Usually there will be a delay of 15 seconds in YouTube. So I'll be replying you anyway. But while going in the session, I may not be able to reply. But further, if you have any doubts related to our session, I'll be replying at the end. You can ask me questions at the end. We'll have another half an hour for question and answer session, where we can have interactively, like you'll be typing and I'll be answering your questions online. Okay. So we'll start in another 2 to 3 minutes. So those are able to hear, please type yes in the chat window. So because of the net, some of the net issues, sometimes there may be any disturbance. Kindly bear. So how are you all doing at home? I have just shifted my movable studio to my home. So for a few days I was in studio, locked myself in studio for about 10 to 15 days. As it was extending, I have shifted some of my basic lighting equipment and camera equipment, others, and one of my main system to home, so that I can work from home. So we have recently started our YouTube channel, and this is our first live session. And further also we'll be coming up with many sessions like this, as well as we will also have many tips and tricks videos, and as well as learning better techniques to capture and other thing. Everything will be posting individual videos depending on the topic. And we'll also have some mentors sessions online soon in our channel. Okay. So if any one of your friends or relatives or students or your community members wanted to learn, you can just share this particular link, so that they can also join this particular session. So again and again, we may not be able to conduct this beginner DSLR photography session. Further, we'll be moving on to the advanced topics, like advanced topics. So this is the best opportunity to learn basics about photography and as well as DSLR. Okay. So I'll just share you a link. You can reshare it if you want. So further, those who have submitted online, like in Google Forms, I'll try to create a separate WhatsApp group for that, so that further, if you have any doubts, I can answer your queries. Okay, so further moving on. So today we'll be discussing majorly about a few techniques of learning. What are the major techniques to learn the basics of DSLR, as well as some techniques related to mobile photography, and some techniques related to different types of photography, and different types of lenses, different types of techniques we'll be using in photography. Everything we'll be discussing. So this session will be till 1 o'clock. So in between we'll have 2 to 3 minutes of 5 minutes of break. If you have any questions at that particular time, you can just post it in the chat live chat window. Okay, good to go. So we'll be starting our session now. So when it comes to DSLR, so before DSLR also, like, we have used different types of cameras, right? So if you want to, if we classify them basically into different types, so here you can see some different types of cameras which we have used in our previous generations. Of course, we are using them now as well. So film cameras, everybody knows, like in 90s, 80s and 90s, we have used these film cameras where we used to have only 35 exposures where no preview used to be there. Once it get developed after it is sent to a lab, then only it is possible to check out all the details. Then at the same time, we have DSLRs, which we'll be discussing on today's session. So we have point and shoot cameras. So what do I mean by this point and shoot camera? So point and shoot is nothing but, say for example, this particular model or this particular model can be considered as point and shoot. So point and shoot cameras, majorly they take care of everything. Like all the settings are taken care by the camera itself. So it's something like an auto camera, or we can now we can compare it with our mobile. So where when you capture with mobile, automatically it sets all settings and you'll be able to capture the picture. Then you have bridge compact cameras. So these bridge compact cameras are cameras where the lens is fixed. So lens is non-detachable. So you can't detach the lens and attach another lens. So means, so those lenses will be something like 24 mm to like 300 mm, 400 mm or 500 mm. Means it can cover wide, it can cover tele also. Most of the time we'll be using them for home purpose or travel photography purpose. So where you don't require to change lenses again and again. Then you have mirrorless cameras. So these are the latest cameras available in the market, mirrorless cameras. So we'll be discussing further what is mirrorless and what is the difference between mirrorless and other things in the further. Like most of the latest cameras are latest technologies are coming with mirrorless cameras. Then you have mobile cameras. Everybody knows about mobile cameras. So in mobile cameras also you have so different types of cameras are coming up, like some mobiles are coming with 3 to 4 cameras. Some mobiles are coming with pro mode where you can take control over manual mode and you can capture better pictures like DSLR. Okay. So further moving, mobile phone cameras. About your mobile phone cameras. So nowadays we came up with different types of mobile phones with more flexibility of camera, more flexibility of camera. So people are more not. Earlier days we used to worry about the signal strength when we are going to buy a mobile camera, but these days mobile cameras are becoming photography options for everybody. So we check what is the megapixel of the camera, or how many cameras it has got, or how many uh, how much storage it has got. Depending on that, we are purchasing mobiles, right? So here you can see some of the mobile accessories, like you can have a wide angle lens accessory, or a macro photography lens, or telephotography lenses, something like this, as well as you have mobile accessories like external light sources. If you are video blogging, or you have different types of accessories like tele lenses, tripods, and many are coming these days for mobile photography. Okay. So further moving, so mobile, we have some restrictions where it won't be able to do all the things which DSLR can do. Okay. So the major why we use DSLR, why DSLR, when we have multiple options of shooting, like advanced latest mobiles, or small cameras, when small cameras when are available, why we are using DSLRs. So the major utility of a DSLR is like, so let me tell you the definition of it first. You can just read it here. So digital single lens reflex camera. So DSLR is nothing but digital single lens reflex. So what it is, I'll be explaining it further. So the main advantages of DSLR, if you see, so it is having lens versatility. So what do you mean by lens versatility? So lens versatility is nothing but you can add number of lenses depending on your requirement. Okay. So why we require different types of lenses? Say for example, uh, a wedding photographer requires some 2 to 3 types of lenses. Say a wildlife photographer requires some 1 or 2 types of lenses where he needs to reach a more focal length, means more distance he need to reach. Okay. Then at the same time, if a food photographer or some other photographer requires a portrait photographer or studio photographer requires different types of lenses. Then sports photographer requires different types of lenses. So like that, if you keep on going, uh, there are about 150 to 200 types of lenses are there in the market for DSLRs. So it may be any type of DSLR. You can just detach your lens and attach depending on your requirement and depending on your profession. Okay. Then second one, faster power up and response time and zoom. So faster power up means, so it can fastly power up when compared to like point and shoot camera and other things. It can fastly power up. Okay. Then rapid frame rate. Rapid frame rate means it is something like we call it as continuous shooting. So means how many number of frames it can capture during a single second. Say for example, if I am shooting something like a kids playing outside, I want to capture all the shots. Like say for example, within a second, if a kid or somebody, if a sports person is throwing a ball or hitting some shot, so at that particular situation, I don't want to miss any shot which happens there. So at that situation, I'll be shooting continuously. So that shooting continuous rapid frame rate is available in DSLRs. So in some of the mobiles also these days it is available. Better autofocus and precise manual focus as well. So better autofocusing system. So there are DSLR cameras which nowadays came up with many autofocus points. Means about 300 to 400 or 500 even focus points are there in DSLRs these days. So where it can accurately pinpointly focus on particular part of the frame, so that the picture will be sharp and precisely, and at the same time you can manually also focus it. So if you want to focus on certain object in any part of your subject, you can manually also take control of focusing. And better low light shooting. So most of the time when we are shooting with mobiles or smaller cameras, we suffer a lot shooting in low light. So low light DSLR plays major role. Like why it plays major role, we'll further discuss about it. Better image quality. Better image quality. Of course, when it has got multiple options and multiple controls, it will give you the better image quality. Why it is better, why it produces better image quality also we'll come to know in the further slides. Then you have through the lens capability, which we also call it as TTL, through the lens viewing. So normally if I take a DSLR, so you have this particular option where you can see through the lens. Okay. So if you are throwing this viewfinder, so you'll be seeing through the lens. Okay. So that is one professional option where when you shoot through this, you will know what is your frame and what is the focusing area and all those options. You can see through this viewing options. Then at the same time, you have professional function and design. So what is this professional function and design? So the DSLRs are designed in such a way so where you can handle them very professionally. Say for example, design wise, say if I take this particular DSLR, so it has got some grip here. So where I can just hold the grip properly. So with a single hand also, I can just hold the camera very stably. At the same time, so the options like the placing of buttons and the placing of different buttons on the camera are given in such a way where user can easily access them. Say for example, if I want to take any picture, So my shooting button, like the clicking button, is available here, where this finger, this pointing finger, can be accessible. Then at the same time, backside, if I see, I have a wheel here. Okay, just to control. So it has given a place where thumb can access this particular wheel. Okay, then at the same time, with my left hand, I can handle the lens. So like if I want to zoom in, or if I want to take manual control of this particular lens, I can just use these particular options. Then at the same time, with the same hand, I can use control of different types of modes which are available in the dial. So I don't need to hold it something like this and go on with this particular option. So holding up the camera with right hand, and I'll be adjusting my lens with this, and I'll be accessing all my settings with whether these settings or the settings, whatever the settings are available on the camera, are placed in such a way, they are designed in such a way where the accessibility will be very easy for you. Okay. So when compared to other cameras, say for example, if it is a point and shoot camera or mobile camera, we'll be just holding like this, right? Okay. So which may not be that stable when compared to a professional design of a DSLR. Okay. So more creativity and flexibility with accessories. So more creativity and flexibility with accessories means, say you have many accessories available for DSLRs. Say for example, if I want to add external lighting source, so something like wireless light, or so wireless flash system, or on-camera flash also. I can just add on-camera flash where I can throw excess light if I require. Then at the same time, wirelessly also, I can trigger multiple flashes and create amazing lighting effects and all. So not only flashes, you have different types of tripods available depending on your requirement, different types of filters available, and different types of lens accessories available, different types of external and external accessories available for like 150 to 200 types of different types of accessories available for DSLRs. Okay. Then at the same time, low battery consumption. Why low battery consumption? Because it doesn't like most of the professionally we don't use this particular screen while shooting. Okay, so if you are a professional, you you are not supposed to use this LCD, okay, while shooting. So after for checking previews you can use this, but while shooting we'll be using this particular viewfinder, where you will see through the lens, and exactly whatever you are able to see, you will be getting it as a frame, as an output. Okay. So when it comes to power consumption, so this particular lens is manually operated, right? So this is not automatically operated. Then at the same time, we are not using this LCD for shooting. So that is the reason, the major reason why it gives more power when compared to other bridge cameras and point and shoot cameras. Normally, in bridge cameras and point and shoot cameras, it is motor driven. So motor driven in the sense, say for example, if I want to zoom, I'll be having some one or two buttons where I can, if I press this particular T or white button, tele or white button, automatically the lens slowly comes out and goes back, and that all is consumption. That is the consumption of the battery is there, right? So at that particular situation, consumption of battery will be more. So typically, if I take a DSLR, a basic DSLR, if I take, so it will last up to 500 shots. If I take a professional DSLR, it will last up to 1000 to 1500 shots. So even if I go further with advanced DSLRs, like so they last up to 5000 shots also, means in a single charge they can give you 5000 shots. Okay. So that is these are the basic advantages of why we use DSLRs as a professionals. Okay. So if you want to learn professional capabilities of DSLR, like just try to avoid mobile phone and carry your DSLR. Or if you don't have DSLR, and if you are very much interested in photography, just buy a DSLR. Why? Because no other mobile can replace DSLR. So whatever the megapixel may be. So at the end of the session, you will come to know like so why I'm very particular about this. Okay, why I'm stressing particularly about DSLR. Okay. Further moving. So types of photography. What type of photography you do? Okay. So here we have a brief classification of different types of photographies here. So you can see in the left hand side like portrait photography, landscape photography, macro photography, sports, wildlife, architecture, fashion, live music, travel, street, wedding, kids, food. So these are all different types of photographies we do in our day-to-day life. So depending on your requirement, you can just choose your type of photography. So if you are into profession or planning to come into profession, you have to decide yourself what type of photography you are planning to shoot. So whether it's a portrait photography or travel photography or micro photography or product photography, whatever it is. So depending on that only, so you will be purchasing your camera and at the same time you will be purchasing your lenses. Okay. So further, if you are going on to different types of modes, so here we have different types of mode for different situations. Okay. So these are all automatic modes. We can say that they are all automatic modes. Okay. Say first mode, you have auto mode where you can automatically like a camera will be taking care automatically about all the settings. At the same time, you have this flash off mode. So this is very important mode some of the time. Say for example, when you want to take some low light photographs inside a darker situations, so where flash is not permitted. So at that particular situation, you will be requiring this particular setting where flash will be off and all the settings will be automatic. So means these particular situations, say for example, when you are shooting kids or when you are shooting inside some monument or temple where flash photography is not allowed. So this particular setting helps a lot. Okay. Then portrait mode, landscape mode is there, sports mode is there, close-up mode, night photography mode, manual mode, so shutter priority mode, programmable AE mode. So these are all different types of mode depending on our requirement we'll be using as a beginner. Okay. So I'm very particular about as a beginner we'll be using. But once you learned about all the techniques of photography, you don't require all these different types of modes. Okay. So we'll be majorly concentrating on manual mode. Okay. So even if you take a mobile phone, so in mobile phone also you'll be having different types of mode, something like this. So you have auto, and at the same time you have pro mode. In some of the advanced mobiles, so you have this particular pro mode where you can control all the options like DSLR, like you have shutter control, you have aperture control, you have ISO control also in this particular pro mode. Okay, so these are all again different types of basic automatic modes where you can just play around. Okay. Then further moving, if you take some typical DSLR camera, Nikon or Canon or Sony, you'll be having this type of menus, this type of dial, camera dial. So where you'll be having different types of modes. Okay. So say for example, if you have a Nikon camera in hand right now, you can just check out this settings, or Canon camera or Sony camera. You can just check out these settings, different settings on the camera. So where M stands for manual mode in both in all the cameras. This particular M stands for manual mode. So which we will be learning into the today's session, where with manual mode you can take complete control over your camera. If you are able to learn manual mode, all the other modes are waste. Okay. So majorly, if you want to take control over your camera, so try to concentrate on manual mode. How best you can use manual mode. So apart from that, you have aperture priority mode, shutter priority mode, program mode, and auto mode. So where some of the auto settings, these are something like a program mode where you can set all your settings in a particular program, where you can whenever that particular situation is there, you can just use that mode and shoot. Shutter priority, so where shutter will be in priority, like and other settings you can control. Aperture, same like that. At the same time, you have auto mode where camera will take care of everything. Means all shutter speed, aperture, and everything will be taken care by camera. So majorly today we'll be concentrating on this particular mode, which is called manual mode. If you are able to learn this particular manual mode, it's more than enough to take control of all the settings. Okay. Then further moving, if you have a DSLR right now, so you have this particular option on the viewfinder, which is called viewfinder adjustment. So here you have plus and minus. So this particular corner you have this particular option to adjust. So what is this adjustment actually? So this particular adjustment is for your eyesight. Okay. So eyesight in the sense, say for example, depending on your eyesight, you can just adjust this. Okay. So at some point of time, the picture will be very clear. So means, say for example, I am wearing specs where I have some point. Okay, eyesight is there. So if you are using my camera, so through the viewfinder, you may see blur picture, but output may be sharper. But while you are looking through the lens, your picture will be blurred. Okay, so to avoid that, you need to adjust that particular viewfinder according to your eyesight. So there is technically we are not doing anything. Just look at the viewfinder, just look inside and just adjust that particular option. Okay, at some point it will be very clear and it is set forever. Okay, so that is viewfinder adjustment. Okay, so further moving, so we'll learn something about camera sensor. So what do you mean by camera sensor? So camera sensor is the thing which captures our images. Okay, say for example, earlier days we used to have film, right? So in film cameras, so when we click the picture, that particular picture is captured onto the film, right? Onto the film, and later on it is processed, and we can see the picture like output after we get the negatives and printouts. So that particular film is replaced by this particular part which is called sensor. Okay. So the sensors are of different sizes. So this is the major part in every camera. It may be mobile camera, it may be point and shoot, it may be DSLR or even advanced cameras. So this particular sensor is the major thing which decides the quality of your image. Okay, and at the same time price of the camera as well. Okay, say for example, so here you can see two examples of Nikon cameras. So this particular sensor is a bit bigger and this particular sensor is a bit smaller. Okay, so this we call it as a crop sensor and this we call it as full frame sensor. Okay, so full frame sensor most of the time is used by professional photographers, and crop sensor most of the by like intermediate and like beginners, amateur, and even some of the professional photographers also they use crop censored camera if they are very good in controlling light. Okay, so sensor plays major role in deciding your image quality. Okay, so just remember that. Further I'll be explaining more about sensor. Say for example, if I go on describing about sensor, so you have these different types of different sizes of sensor. Say for example, if I'm capturing a picture in a full frame sensor, my frame will be something like this. Means width of the sensor. I'm talking about the width of the sensor. If I'm taking this particular picture with a full frame sensor, so my frame will be something a bit bigger, something a bit wider also. Okay, if it is a crop sensor, so this will be a bit smaller. Even if it is a bit even smaller sensor, my frame will be this much of smaller. Okay, so I'm just talking about the width of the viewing angle. Okay, so this is something about framing and sizing. Okay, then if I see the physical size of the sensor, so here you can see different sizes of sensor. Say for example, this is a 35 mm full frame sensor. Then comes a bit crop sensors, even crop sensor, even smaller sensor, even smaller sensor like 2 by 3rd of sensor. So 1 by 1, 1.8 of the sensor. So 1 by 2.5 of the sensor. So if say for example these particular sensors will be in smaller cameras. So means point and shoot cameras. So now you can imagine the mobile sensor. So mobile sensors will be even teeny, very teeny. Okay. So I'll just show you one more description of mobile sensor here. Comparative size of mobile sensor. Say for example, so here you have full frame sensor. Okay, the size comparison you can see, and at the same time you can see the mobile sensor. What is the high? This is a high-end mobile again. Okay, this is iPhone 5 sensor. Okay, so mobile camera sensor will be very tiny when compared to the DSLR. Okay, so if the sensor size is bigger, automatically the quality of the image will be much better. Okay, so these days we are coming up with multiple cameras like with different megapixels like 64 megapixel or 40 megapixel or even 110 megapixel. Different mobiles are coming with different resolutions. Okay, so something like if you are getting 64 or 40 above or 40, 60 or 100 megapixel, but the inside whatever the sensor it is there, it is just tiny. You can see the lens size, right? So lens is this much. You can just imagine what is the size of the sensor beyond that lens. Even just a little tiny sensor will be there inside your mobile camera. So never ever compare your mobile camera quality with a professional DSLR. Okay, so DSLR is DSLR. Mobile is just a playful thing where you can just capture your memories. That's it. If you want to print a picture from your mobile in a larger scale, it is never possible. Okay, so I have a small illustration about it. So I have got more megapixel than you. So try to shoot in dark, buddy. No, it is not possible to shoot with mobile in a darker situation because sensor plays major role in capturing low light. Okay, the bigger the sensor, the more it will be able to handle light. Okay, so depending on that, say for example, if you have a camera something like the price range from 20,000 to 70,000, so those are all crop censored cameras. Means a bit professional, like semi-professional, I can say semi-professional, where it can capture very good pictures when compared to mobile phone or any other point and shoot camera. Because the size of the sensor is, you can see here. So these are the cameras I am talking about. Something like if it is Nikon 3000 series or 5000 series or 7000 series, all these cameras fall under APS-C. At the same time, Canon 1200, 1100, 1500, 1300, all these series and 600, 700, all these series fall under APS-C, means crop sensor camera. If it is a full frame camera most of the time like used by professional photographers, like where the price starts from about 1 lakh rupees and above, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs. So depending on the manufacturer and depending on the type of advanced like mirrorless cameras and others, they are a bit expensive when compared to regular DSLRs. Okay, so it is the sensor which decides the quality of your image, not the megapixel. Okay, so never ever fall in this particular megapixel option. Uh, so comparatively, if I give some comparison, something like this, megapixel versus sensor size. Say your iPhone 5 or iPhones fall somewhere here, and your full frame is this much bigger. This full frame sensor is this much bigger when compared to the phone. Okay, or else your APS-C sensor is this much bigger when compared to your phone sensor. So the capability of handling the quality of your image is more here. Okay, or here. Okay, so DSLR is DSLR and mobile is mobile. Then at the same time, if you see megapixel and print size, so here you can just check. So say for example, if you have a 2 megapixel or 3 megapixel, nowadays we don't have 2 to 3 megapixel. Most of the time we have above 8 megapixel only. Like say for example, it is just that the size and dimensions of the picture increases. If you are increasing megapixel, only print size increases, that's it. Okay, not the quality of your image. Quality of your image never increases with your megapixel. Only sensor is the deciding factor of your quality of the image. So megapixel is only decides the width and height of the picture, means dimensions only increasing with the help of megapixels, not the quality of the image. So whenever you are buying your next mobile or next DSLR camera, don't fall into the megapixel war, because 12 megapixel is more than enough for us to print a size of a bigger wall. Okay, so that's more than enough. About 12 megapixel, any DSLR is very good. Okay, so right now we'll be having like something like 18 megapixel or 24 megapixel, mostly in APS-C cameras. If it is a full frame, so these days 40 megapixel and 60 megapixel are running, where it can help you in cropping sometimes. Means if you have more megapixel camera, more megapixel DSLR camera, you can crop your frame if you don't have a particular zoom lenses or something like that. Okay, so that is majorly about megapixels. Okay, so hope you have a better understanding about megapixels here. So further, if you are any time if you are going to buy any mobile, you just check out in the specifications. So what is that particular mobile having, what type of sensor it has got. Okay, so just in technical specification, just say sensor. So what sensor it has got? It may be Chinese mobile or it may be any other mobile. Just check out the specifications. What type of sensor it has got inside? What is the size of the sensor inside? So these days, I think Huawei P40, I think P40 is coming with the first 1-inch sensor. Okay, so maybe so we'll just see further. We'll plan to do some review on that in the coming of future if it is available in the market. Okay, so hope you have a better understanding about megapixel and sensor size. So sensor is a major factor in deciding the picture quality, not the megapixel. Megapixel is only about the size of the image, means print size of the image. Okay, so further moving, so here we have something about we'll learn something about lenses. So before going into different types of bodies, we'll just learn what type of lenses and what is the technologies inside the lens. Okay, so if you take a lens, this particular option will be there in every lens. Okay, so which is called movement compensation. So movement compensation in different cameras and different manufacturers give their words technical terminology differently. Say for example, if we take a Nikon camera lens, they call it as VR, vibration reduction. So means this VR option is there on your lens. You can just check it out. If it is a kit lens, some of the kit lenses doesn't mention that option, but it will be there on the kit lens as well. If you have a zoom lens, it will be there on that particular lens as well, which is called VR. So VR stands for vibration reduction. Okay. At the same time, in Canon, it is called IS, image stabilization. Tamron, it is called VC, vibration control. Sigma, it is called optical stabilization. Pentax, it is called shake reduction. Sony, it is called super steady shot. So more or less, if you see these all technical terminology, so they are similar. Okay, so all it is saying is it is stabilizing the lens. So why we require this VR, vibration reduction, or why we require this movement compensation? Because when we are holding a DSLR with a zoom lens or any other lens, our hand shake. So while taking picture like this, slight shake will be there. So to avoid that, to compensate that, so this particular technology is there in your lens. Okay. So to make your photo stable, so to avoid blurry shots, so this particular VR option is there on your lenses. So always it has to be on. You have to switch it on. Okay. Say for example, so in this particular camera, So this is having a sigma lens. So where it is having an option called OS. So this particular OS is there, right? So this particular OS. So you can just see here. So this particular OS option is there on the camera. So which has to be switched always. Okay, so that when I'm taking pictures, if slight shake is there, automatically camera stabilizes. So here I'll show you one more camera. So with another lens, Nikon one. So this particular VR option you can just see here. This VR. So VR stands for vibration reduction. So this particular button, this is a 70-200 lens of Nikon. So here if I take VR option, so here it has got more options of VR. So advanced lenses will have more options of VR, more stability because it is a bigger zoom lens. So it has to be more stable when I'm capturing different pictures. So in VR also we have active VR, we have normal VR in this particular. So means this plays major role in stabilizing your camera. Okay. So I'll just show you a brief, even detailed video about this. This is there is a video I'll just show you. So this is a technology behind this particular lens where you can just see this video and see. So I have told you about vibration reduction, right? You can see inside there is a lens shaking. It is just moving, right? So that particular this particular technology, because of this particular technology only, like your pictures are more stable. Like you can just see here, it is just moving. Means according to your shaking, automatically it adjusts and it moves. VR, vibration reduction. It will just compensate your movement. VR, vibration reduction. Okay. So Canon it is called IS. So here in this picture you can just see this VR mechanism in between the lens. This is the compartment of our lens. So in this particular lens, it is just compensating the movement. Say for example, if you are tilting your lens this side, automatically it is going the other side. This particular VR mechanism. Okay. At the same time, further it has got more options like silent wave motors. Means earlier when we are using basic non-VR lenses, it used to produce a lot of hissing noise. So when I zoom it and when I'm focusing, it used to create a lot of hissing noise. But the advanced lenses have got more options like silent wave motors where focusing will be very quiet. So further moving, we'll be also discussing about aperture. So now you can see it here. So the aperture, you can just see how the aperture blades are formed and how it works. So this is called aperture, and these are all different types of blades. So how it is opening and closing, you can just see it here. So these are all different types of diaphragm blades inside the lens. This is called aperture. Okay, further I'll be explaining about aperture. So this is lens barrel mechanism. Different types of lenses will have different types of mechanism of the lens. When you zoom in and zoom out, how it works internally. different types of glasses which are placed on your lens. Different types of lenses will have different types of glasses like this. Okay, that is something about lens, like different types of lenses, different types of technologies inside the lens. Okay, hope you have understood this particular concept, which is called movement compensation. Every lens will have this particular option called movement compensation. So even when you are upgrading your lenses, you have to buy a lens which is having this particular option, because there are some non-VR, means this particular VR plays major role in deciding the price factor as well. Say for example, if you are buying a lens without VR, say for example, if you are upgrading a lens, say it is Nikon 7300. So Nikon 7300, there are two versions of lenses, where one is with VR and one is without VR. So with VR will cost you around 30 plus thousand rupees, 30,000 plus rupees. Then non-VR will cost you less than 10,000 rupees. But to see the size, both look similar. But only the things that 20,000 rupees factor we are investing for VR option. So means, say for example, when it is a zoom lens, you'll be requiring VR. Otherwise, you have to keep your lens on a tripod. So means to stabilize. Say for example, if you are handheld taking, you have to have VR option in zoom lenses. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to get sharper pictures. If you have it zoom lens, so always keep this particular option on. So VR or IS or VC, it has to be switched on. Otherwise, you'll get blurred shots. Okay, so that is something about sensor and lens technology. So further moving, we'll discuss something about exposure, and so how we can get better exposure and other things. So here, in this particular picture, so which one you call it as well exposed links, means which one you can see very clearly. So maybe 0 or +1 you can see very clearly, right? Like means it is well lit, means well exposed. We call it as since in technical terminology we call it as exposed, well exposed. Okay, so well exposed picture creates like to create a well exposed picture, there are two options, like we'll be discussing about them further. So but say, so here if it is -2 or -1, we call it as underexposed. If it is something like +2 or +1, we call it as overexposed. But some people think that this is well exposed. But if you observe the difference here, so you are missing the background. So here you have blue background, right? Blue or gray background is there. So here the colors and background is missing. Then at the same time, in this also, if you compare these two pictures, So colors here are very good, and here are overexposed. So here you can see reds, but here you can see oranges. Okay, so like that, if when it is called well exposed photographs means when all the colors, when all the details are properly visible, then we call it as properly exposed photograph. Okay, so to get a well exposed photograph, we have a technology called a terminology called exposure triangle. So these are the basic things in your camera, so like shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. These three are the major factors in your camera. So these three we will be learning together in manual mode. That's it. Okay. If you are able to understand these three terminologies like what is shutter speed and what is aperture and what is ISO, it is more than enough. You're done with your digital photography. Okay. The later part is of course practice, but better try to understand it here. If you are unable to understand also further, you can ask me in any of our further sessions. Okay. So these three, by balancing these three, you will be getting this proper exposure. That is why we call it as exposure triangle. This is not a big terminology. If you control shutter speed properly, aperture properly, and ISO properly, you will be getting a well exposed picture. That's it. Okay. So there is nothing to worry about. So major concentration will be on these two only. So shutter speed and aperture plays major role in controlling your camera. Okay, in getting a better picture. So shutter speed. So what do you mean by shutter speed actually? So refer to how long the shutter is open. Okay, referred as how long the shutter is open means how much time it is opening. Okay, that particular time is called shutter speed, or else in a simple word we call it as how long camera sees the picture. Means it has got some duration. It is not just one click when we are just holding our like when we are just clicking a picture. It is not just a same speed at the same speed. It is not capturing. It has got this particular shutter has got some speed which is measured in seconds. Okay, so seconds in the sense, say here you can see measured in seconds, 30 down to 1 by 8,000 of a second. So 1 by 8,000 means 1 by 8,000 of a second. Okay, you can't even imagine how fast it is clicking. 1 by 8,000 of a second. Okay, 30 down means 30 seconds. Okay, so means 30 seconds it can just open and see your picture. So when do we require that? So we require it in low light conditions, or else when we are creating some beautiful light painting and effects or long exposure effects, we'll be requiring 30 down. So how to do that? Don't worry about it. How to do that? We'll practically see further. So 1 by 8,000 seconds. Some cameras like intermediate level or amateur cameras will have 1 by 4,000 of a second. Professional cameras will have 1 by 8,000 of a second. So means shutter speed, just remember shutter speed is measured in seconds, where 30 down and 1 by 8,000 of a second. Further, we'll discuss how it varies. Then at the same time you have, sorry, not this one. So how shutter works. So I'll just show you a small video here how our shutter works. This is just an illustration. You can just follow. So we have discussed about sensor, right? So sensor is like behind the shutter. Okay. So behind the shutter you have sensor. This is nothing but film. So earlier days we used to have film. So this is replaced by sensor. This particular sensor is behind the shutter. So once the shutter opens up, sensor records the picture and stores onto the memory card. Okay. Once again, I'm playing better understanding. Okay, so that is how shutter works. Okay, say for example, if you want to create a slow motion effect, so you'll be requiring less shutter speed. So if you want to create speeder motion, like if you want to freeze the object, you'll be requiring higher shutter speed. So I'll give you more examples about this. Say, so if you want to capture some pictures like this, say if I want to freeze this particular motion of kids playing here or some sports activity, I'll be requiring higher frame rate, something like above 1 by 500th of a second. I'll be requiring to freeze the motion 1 by 500th of a second. Okay, so where my shot will be very stable, or if it is lower, something like 1 by 4 of a second, 1 by 15th of a second, 1 by 60th of a second, so I'll be getting pictures something like blurry pictures, something like this, something like this, or something like this. I won't be having the sharper picture, this sort of sharper pictures if I'm using lower shutter speed. Then at the same time, we have one more example here, which is slow shutter speed. So when do we require slow shutter speed, something like 5 seconds or below? So we require low shutter speed when we require to create something like a creative compositions or something like this. These called light trails. So means these are the tail lights of vehicles moving on a highway. These are the tail lights and these are the headlights you can see. So means so my shutter is open for 5 seconds. So means in 5 seconds, whatever the action is happening before my camera, so that is recorded here. Then at the same time, in this scenario, again, it is again similar. So the camera exposed for longer time, and later on these pictures are clubbed. So if you want to create, so this is not a graphic, these two are not graphics, okay. So these are just created out of your camera directly with the help of low shutter speed. Okay, all the DSLRs have got this particular option to control shutter speed depending on your requirement. If you want higher shutter speed, you will be increasing the value to 1 by 500 of second, 1 by 600 or 800, 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000, up to 8000 also you can control depending on your camera. Then at the same time, if you want low shutter speed, so up to 30 seconds down. So means beyond, if I require below 30 seconds? Yes, it is possible. Below 30 seconds, you have a mode called bulb mode. So means in bulb mode, you can hold it for longer time. Means if you want to expose it for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, that is also possible in bulb mode. So for that, you'll be requiring additional accessory, which is called intervalometer, uh, where you can lock the shutter for longer time, more than 30 seconds. Okay. So now we'll see how to set that in your camera. Okay. Say for example, every DSLR is having this particular option, this particular wheel. So either in the front side or in the back side of your camera, this particular dial is there. So where a small wheel which you can rotate it. So here in my camera, I got this particular option here. I'll just show you. So this particular dial I am talking about. So this particular dial, okay. So this is what controls shutter speed. So if I am rotating, so now a task is for you. You just need to open your DSLR and see whether you are able to change this or not. So you'll be able to change this. Just switch on your camera, switch on your DSLR camera, and try to rotate this wheel and see what are the values changing here. Okay, just do it right away so that you will have practical knowledge about your camera. Okay, if you have a DSLR, just open your DSLR and try to set this. Try to check this particular option, shutter speed. So there is a small dial in the back side or front side for some cameras. You can just see how it is rotating. When you rotate, what are the values you are getting? So the lowest value and highest value, you can just make a note of it. The lowest will be 30 seconds and the highest will be most of your cameras, like it will be 1 by 4,000th of a second. 1 by 4,000 of a second it will be. Okay. Hope you have got this particular option. If not further, you can check it out in your camera. So I'll give you more examples about this shutter speed. So shutter speed, you can just go ahead with more options, like if it is slow shutter speed, how it works, you can just see it here. Say for example, I have one more illustration here, 1 by 3rd of a second. The baby is moving here in this particular frame, and here you can see 1 by 3rd of a second, 1 by 8th of a second it is not stable, 1 by 20th of a second it is not stable, 1 by 100th of a second it is a bit stable and colors are clear, 1 by 250th of a second it is a bit more stable and colors are very clear and the picture is very sharp. So now you may be able to understand that, say for example, at around 200 or 250th of a second, you are able to capture a moving baby who is on the bed. Or else if somebody is playing in the ground, so it will be a bit more, something like 1 by 400 or 1 by 350 or 1 by 500 a second, you have to capture the moving subjects. Or else even more, say for example, if I'm capturing a bird, then my priority differs. Why? Because the speed of the bird may differ and speed of the car may differ. Depending on that, you have to set your shutter speed if you want to freeze the picture. Okay. So that is something about shutter speed. So here you can observe one more thing. Okay. So when you have low shutter speed, the lighting is more. When you have higher shutter speed, the lighting is less, right? So here shutter also controls lighting, which is coming inside your camera. So depending on your timing, it is controlling lighting as well. It is freezing the subject as well as it is controlling the light which is entering the camera. I hope you have some understanding about shutter speed. So further moving, we'll see what is aperture. Okay. So aperture is defined as a hole or opening through which light is admitted inside the camera. Okay. So aperture is a hole. It is just we can just compare this as our window, a room window. Say for example, if you have a smaller window, it allows less light, right? If you have a bigger window, it allows more light inside, something like that. Okay. If you have a smaller hole, it is allowing less light inside. If you have a bigger hole, it is allowing more light inside. Say for example here, aperture values you can just see f2.8, f4, f5.6, f8, f11, f16. So means the bigger the value, the smaller the hole. Okay. So I'll give you a brief one more small video about aperture. You can just see it here.
Aperture controls the amount of light traveling through the lens and affects the brightness and depth of field of the exposure. An aperture of f1.8 is a lower f-stop number and will allow more light through the lens. An aperture of f8 is a middle range aperture that will allow less light through the lens. An aperture of f22 is a higher f-stop number that allows the least amount of light through the lens in this example. Additionally, aperture also controls the depth of field. If we set our focus point on the woman when we create this image, and the standing man on the left is closer to us than the woman, while the walking man on the right is farther away from us than the woman, we will get these results for each f-stop. Notice how f1.8 has the least amount of the men away from the woman in focus. f8 will have more of the men in focus than f1.8, and f22 will have most of the men in focus.
Okay, this is a small video about how aperture works. I'll give you more description about aperture, how it works. Say for example, if I take a lens, something like this, it's a prime lens. It is having a lowest value f1.8. Okay. And further, if I keep on closing that, that will go to f 2.8, f4, f5.6, f8, 11, 16, 22, something like that. It keeps on going. Means the bigger the value, the bigger the f number, it is the hole is smaller. Okay, like that. If the hole is bigger, it is allowing more light to come inside. Okay, then at the same time, I'll show you a physical lens here. So this is a prime lens I'm using here. So this is a Nikon 50mm 1.8 lens. Okay, so it is the same example here. It is given 1.8. Okay, so if I want to control this, say for example, manually right now I'm controlling. So I can just open it up. You can see the hole becoming bigger, right? I can just close this. So means right now I'm manually controlling it, but whereas in camera it is digitally controlled. Okay, the hole is becoming bigger and becoming smaller. So this is what is called aperture. Means aperture controls light which is coming inside the camera. Okay, shutter also controls light. Then aperture also controls light. It is all about lighting, right? Okay, that is something about aperture. You just remember this. Light is controlled with the help of these particular blades which are there inside the lens. Controls light. Okay, further going, so aperture has got one more duty which is called depth of field. So what do I mean by depth of field? So there is a technical terminology. Don't worry about it. Don't worry much about it. About technical terminologies. Depth of field is nothing but a blur. The blur amount of blur it can create. Say for example, at f4, I can see this front row in focus. So means at f4 or f1.8 or f2.8, all other rows will be, say for example, some 4 rows are there, right? So in these 4 rows, first row is in focus and rest of them are out of focus, means they are in blur. Then at the same time, if it is f8 or f8, 2 rows will be in focus. If it is f16 or f22, all 4 rows will be in focus. So means I can see sharper picture of the front row as well as sharper picture at the back row also. So when do we require this type of situation? Say for example, when we are capturing a landscape, so we require everything in focus, right? So at that particular situation, we'll be using this particular option like f16 or f22 if I want to capture some scenery or landscape. I'll be using this particular f16 or f22 or f11 depending on my lighting conditions. Okay, so further moving, I'll give you more examples of this. Say for example, so here if your depth of field is narrow, say for example here, if you can see all the picture, all the letters properly, right? My depth of field is narrow here. My aperture is narrow here. Okay. So when I have wider aperture means bigger opening. I can say bigger opening here. Let me just close this. Okay. Here aperture is widely open. Here it is smaller. It is bigger here. When it is widely open, I can't see other pictures in focus. Only this particular row is in focus. Okay. Like that, it differs. Now we'll see how to adjust this particular option in your camera. Okay, so most of your cameras are having this particular option to control. Say for example, if it is a Nikon camera, so on the top you have plus and minus button. You have to press and hold that, and you have to use this particular dial button. So the shutter, we use this particular dial to control shutter speed, right? You have to press this plus and minus button here, plus and minus which is on the top. I'll just zoom this picture and show you. So here you have plus and minus button, right? So that you have to press and hold and you have to adjust. I'll practically also show on my camera. And if it is a Canon camera, you have to press this AV button and move the dial. Okay, I'll just show you in my Nikon camera. If it is a Canon camera, you have this AV button, or under AV button also you have this plus and minus option is there. Plus and minus. You have to press that button, keep it hold with one of your fingers and rotate the shutter dial. Okay, then you will be able to see the values changing, something like f lowest f number possible, like most of the kit lenses will have f 3.5 as the lowest value or f4 as the lowest value, and highest value will be around f22 or f28 depending on the lens. Okay, so now I'll show you in my camera. Say here on the top you have this plus and minus option, right? So this plus and minus, I have to press and hold this particular button which is there, and I have to use this dial to rotate. So then I'll be able to change the value of aperture. So just write. Okay, so with the help of that you will be able to change the aperture value. Okay, so just try to find out these buttons, like on the top here, if it is Nikon, adjacent to your shutter button you have this plus and minus. You have to press and hold with one of your fingers and rotate the backside dial so that you will be able to adjust your shutter speed, sorry, aperture. Directly rotating the wheel changes shutter speed. So pressing plus and minus button and adjusting it will change the aperture value. Okay, so some of the advanced cameras will have two dials. Okay, like shutter, like to control shutter speed you have this backside button, right? Backside you have this dial to control the shutter speed, right? So similarly for aperture also there will be one more dial if it is a bit advanced camera. Say for example here also this is my 7100. So here I have one more dial. So where I can make rotation here. So means with the help of this I can change aperture. With the help of the backside dial I can change shutter speed. Okay. So now in your camera you can just check out number, like shutter, like what are the numbers changing. So usually like shutter you will have f 3.5 lowest, and the highest you will be having f22 or 25 or 28 depending on your manufacturer of your lens. So depth of field, so we are referring to aperture's depth of field, right? So in depth of field what it can do is, say for example you must have seen this sort of images, and you most of time you must be like most of the people buy DSLRs to create some images like this. Say here in this the backside girl is blurred, then in this the entire background is blurred, and in this one the entire scenery is blurred and these stones are visible, and here it's a similar condition. So this is possible with the help of depth of field, okay, which is called, which we also call it as DOF. Okay, so depth of field. Say for example, if you have lower number, means f 1.8 or f 3. No, usually with the kit lenses, this type of blur is not possible. Remember that. Most of the time you must have tried, but ended up with not getting this type of pictures. So it all depends on lens what you have. Means say for example, if you have a prime lens, the basic prime lens like this one, so 50 mm 1.8. You can actually get very beautiful blurred pictures, professional quality pictures, something like this. So all these pictures can be created with the help of a single lens. So this type of lens, so which is called 50 mm 1.8. So it is available in all brands like Canon, Nikon, Sony, whatever it may be. That costs you around 10,000 rupees in Canon and Nikon, and in Sony it costs you a bit more. Like it is always double in Sony. So it costs you around 20,000 rupees. So, so this creates beautiful blur picture. If you want to upgrade your lenses, you can first upgrade to this prime lens, so which is very beautiful, where you can create beautiful blur pictures, something like this. So where the aperture value will be 1.8. So even if you are very particular about creating even more blur, you can go for 1.4 also, but it is a bit again more expensive when compared to 1.8. Okay. Uh, you can just check out the pricings online. So here Aperture is having two duties. One is to control light, and second one is to create a depth of field. Okay. So you must have seen some of the candid photographers, right, with bigger lenses. Okay. So they isolate the subject and capture the natural movement of the people. So something like this. Say for example, uh, at f1.8 or at f2.8. So here if you see depth of field is more, means at this particular focal distance you have 1, 2, 3, 4 people in focus. Okay, but whereas when I'm using lower aperture value, I can isolate the subject by making the foreground as well as background blur. Okay, like this you can create blurred pictures with the help of aperture. Okay, then further I have an example. If you are able to this particular example of aperture and shutter speed, so that's more than enough to uh, understand it. Say for example, here you can just observe the values and picture. Just try to observe these particular values and picture, and I'll explain you. So what is the aperture and what is the shutter speed? You just observe it here. So we'll discuss about here further. If you are able to understand this particular picture, that's more than enough for you, that I can understand that you have understood aperture and shutter speed properly. I'll explain it further. Okay. So here you can see first picture f1.8. So f is nothing but aperture, right? f1.8. So here the background is completely blurred. So here you can see at f1.8 background is blurred. Shutter speed is 1 by 500th of a second. It is a stable object, but still we are using 1 by 500th of a second. Why? Because to control light here. To control light we are using 1 by 500. To create blur we are using f1.8. Then here f is 4. Slightly background is visible here. Okay. Then at the same time shutter speed is 1 by 1/25th of a second. Why shutter speed is lowered here? Because here you can see that picture, this picture and this picture light is more or less balanced. To balance lighting we are closing aperture here, right? Aperture we are just closing to f4, means we are making the holes smaller. So when we are making smaller we have to compensate light, right? To compensate light we are increasing the shutter speed. Okay, then here aperture is f8, where you can see the entire background as well as the subject in focus. The subject is in focus as well as the background is also in focus. Okay, there is no much blur, but shutter speed is 1 by 40th of a second. So means again here to compensate the light we have decreased the shutter speed. Means when we are closing it further, when we are closing the aperture even smaller, so we have to compensate light, right? So at this particular situation, we are like allowing more light to come inside with the help of shutter speed so that it can capture more light. So here aperture and shutter speed are playing hand in hand. Okay. So if you are able to control these two properly, then we'll be able to capture better pictures. Okay. So first you need to understand these two first, aperture and shutter speed. So in one class it is not possible to understand. Why? Because practice makes you more perfect. As now you are at home, you can do more practice. Okay. Take a small subject, anything like a toy or some jewelry or any subject, and keep it near a window lighting or any good lighting source, and keep on changing the aperture and capture the same subject for multiple times with different aperture values. Then at the same time, try to capture, try to make it stable, like aperture stable, and try to change the shutter speed and try to capture the subject for multiple times, and you differentiate between them. Say for example, capture, say for example, if you have a kit lens of f 3.5 or f4, you just try to capture one subject with f4, try to capture the same subject with f5.6, f8, f10, f12, f13, 14, like that. Keep on increasing the value and see how the difference is making at f4 or f3.5, or if you have a f1.8 lens, f1.8, what is the difference, and f22, what is the difference you are getting. Then at the same time, make aperture stable, lowest, like say keep it on 3.5 or 4. Then keep on changing the shutter speed. So how it differentiates the picture, like what are the differences you are getting when you are increasing shutter speed, what are the differences you are getting when you are increasing aperture. You just observe it or else make a note of it. So then you will be able to understand how aperture and shutter speed playing hand to hand. There is a saying that until unless you experiment on 10,000 pictures, you won't be able to understand what is what of your camera. Okay. If you are basically able to understand this particular manual mode, you have to keep your camera in manual mode and do all the settings. Okay. So in manual mode, you will be able to control this aperture and shutter speed. So if you are able to understand these two properly, you are more than enough to go ahead with your manual mode digital photography. Okay. So you can now, so when you have, whenever like you have time now, you can practice it well, and further you can come back whenever you have doubts related to this aperture and shutter speed. Why? Because these are the two things professionally we use in most of the situations. If you are able to control these two situations, like shutter speed and aperture, that's more than enough for you to control all the settings of the camera. Okay, these are the major settings. Okay, so further I'll give you more examples about the same. Say for example at 5.6, the blur is more. So this is a tele lens again. Let me tell you, this is a tele lens. At 5.6, blur is more, but whereas f22, the background is visible. Okay, so I have more examples for your understanding. So here at f2.8, only front row is visible. At f8, 1, 2 rows are visible. F32, all of them are visible. Okay. Then at the same time, here I have one more example of f1.8 lens. So f1.8, only this middle part is visible. At f4, slightly more area is visible. F8, even more area. F22, entire scale from here to here, it is completely visible. But where here you can see only this part in focus, means a very narrow depth of field. So here your depth of field is bigger. Means here we are using f22, here we are using f1.8. Means, say for example, if you want to create portraits, what is the value you will be using? F1.8, right? F1.8 will be using. Okay, hope you have understood the concept of aperture and shutter speed. If you have any doubts further, you can always ask me for support. Okay. So further moving, we have one more technique to control light, which is called ISO. Okay, so ISO is the level of sensitivity of your camera to available light. Okay, so usually like ISO is something like we call it as artificial light, which is enhanced by sensor. Okay, artificial lighting. So most of the time we don't depend on ISO. As a professional, most of the time we don't depend on ISO. So mostly like ISO value varies from way 100 to 1600, 3200, 6400. Even these days, latest cameras are came up with the ISO of 1 lakh also. So means with no light, you'll be able to see something out of it. With no light, pinch dark situations also, you'll be able to capture pictures. But there is a problem with ISO. So if it is artificially increased inside, artificial light is added to your picture inside the sensor, you will be ending up with the blurred, so like noisy picture. I'll give you what is noisy picture. Most of the time, say for example, when you're capturing with your mobile phone, you must have mobile phone at the night situations. You must have seen some of the pictures very with very noisy color dots. Okay, so that is called color noise. We call it as color noise or color dust or noise, image noise. Okay, so those pixels are visible, means picture is not sharper. Okay, so artificially it is just adding a bit of light. So usually in DSLR cameras we don't increase more than 400 or 800 or 1000 above. We don't go beyond 1000. If you are going beyond 1000, 1500 or 1000, 2000, even above, so automatically sharpness decreases. Sharpness in the picture decreases, and picture will be more of noisy. I'll give you some examples of noisy images here, and good images as well. Say for example, here in this particular image, you can just see. So ISO is 100, and you can see very clear image, right? But whereas ISO is increased to 1200, you can see this particular noise. When it is when your picture is in 100% mode, you can see this particular noise. Okay, so this is what is called. This is created with the ISO. Okay, but just to create artificial lighting, you can just increase it in some creative situations, or when it is mandatory, you have to capture something out of it. When you don't have other sources of light, you have to increase ISO. Here there are more examples like when gradually when it is increased, you will be getting this particular type of noise, color noise. So this happens with ISO. But whereas when it is going to extreme levels, it comes. This particular noise comes. When it is in a normal mode, it helps creating a beautiful picture. Say for example, I'll give you one more example here. So here you can see this is a restaurant situation where ISO is 100, where it is not well exposed, it is underexposed. But whereas this one at 800, it is a bit overexposed. But whereas at ISO 320, it is a bit well exposed, where you can see proper lighting, textures of this particular ground as well as textures of this and very good colors here. So at 320, this particular image is created very beautifully. Okay, but whereas if it is increased, automatically there are colors are dull, as well as here you can see overexposed areas. Okay, and if I zoom it, automatically the picture will be a bit noisy also. So don't go beyond extreme levels. Okay, here I have one more example of the same ISO. So here it is 200, here it is 400, but whereas at 800, it is a bit better when compared to 200 and 400. But whereas in 1600, it is a bit overexposed, and some details are missing, as well as colors are also missing. Okay, like that we use this ISO depending on our requirement. If it is not possible, if we are unable to control light with the help of aperture and shutter speed, or if you don't have or else if you don't have flash, or if you are not supposed to use flash sometimes, you can increase ISO and manage capturing your pictures. Okay, usually ideal ISO will be from 100 to 800 or 1000 maximum. Okay, so depending on your camera again. Okay, that is something about ISO, where you can increase artificial lighting inside the camera. Okay, So now comes focusing system. How camera focuses. So this is again one more important topic. There is a simple thing where, say for example, if you have a frame of this much in your camera, so you'll be having a small dots or squares or rectangles inside your camera. If you see inside your lens and half press, half press it, you can see there is a light, a red light or white light blinking inside the camera. Okay, so that is means that particular point is where you are able to focus, means that is the focusing area, and these focusing points varies from camera to camera. Okay, means say for example here you have more focusing point, here you can less focusing points, here even less, here even less, one focus point, 9 focus points. Okay, again in this focus points, so depending on your camera manufacturer, some will have 39 focus points, some will have 9 focus points, some will have 59 focus points, some latest cameras will have 150 focus points, even 200, 300 focus points, 400 focus points. The latest Sony cameras have came up with 400 focus points. Even the Nikon mirrorless cameras came up with 400 above focus points. Okay, so the more focus points you have, the more precision control you have on your image. Means pinpointly you can focus on the subject, whichever subject you want. Okay, so how you can change this focus point? Say for example, if it is always center, it is not possible, right? So manually we can just move this focus points wherever we want in the frame. Okay, remember, manually you can control these focus points. Say for example, even this number of focus points also you can say for example, if you have 39 focus points, something like this, so you can control them, like you can decrease and increase them in your camera settings. Means you can set it for 21 focus points or you can set it for 9 focus points. Then at the same time you can move these focus points wherever you want. So why we require to move focus points? Why? Because we follow some rules called rules of third. I'll be explaining that further. So means say for example, my subject in the frame is somewhere here. Okay, and I want to move this focus point to this particular place. So we can move with the help of our backside dial button. Say for example, backside of your camera, like how to adjust this particular focus points means, say for example, if it is a Canon camera or Nikon camera, in Nikon camera you have that dial button in the backside, right? So this particular dial, I'll just show you. So you have this up and down, left and right dial button here, right? So with the help of this particular dial, you can just move these focus points up, down, left and right. Okay, so if it is not moving, it is locked somewhere in the menu, you have to check out in the menu settings if it is locked, or if it is not moving, you can just go on to your menu settings, and in menu settings you will be having that focus point option where you can move it. Okay, so further, if it is not available, like available to access, you can just in Nikon camera you can just press this AL button, so that it will be activated. If it is Canon camera, you have this dial here, like zoom button, plus and minus zoom button is there. If you press it, automatically those focus points will be activated and you can change them. So here you have AF point selector, autofocus point selector button is there. So this is the autofocus point button selector. And Nikon cameras, you have a bit advanced cameras, you have it here, or else you have this particular option here, AE lock or AF lock. You can just press it and you can change the focusing points. Okay, if after pressing this also, if it is not accessible, you have to go into menu and you can you have to adjust it manually. Okay, so you can set it there and later on you can come back to this dial and you can move the focus point according to your requirement. So that is how you will be using your focusing system. Okay, so wherever you want to focus, you just put your focus point there and capture your picture. So automatically, wherever it is focused, that particular area will come as a sharper picture. Okay, because all it all we are doing it for sharpness purpose, right? So that sharpness to get accurate focusing, to get sharper image, we require these focus points. So usually if you set it on auto mode, automatically camera decides and selects whichever area it sees in the far foreground, it just decides as a subject. Or else if you decide, in manual mode we decide, right? In manual mode we decide where to focus. So we'll be moving that focus point to certain point on the subject. Say for example, if I'm shooting this particular lens, so I want to focus it here. So I'll be moving in my frame somewhere here. I'll be moving my focus point here, and I'll be capturing my picture. Okay. So that is something about focus points in DSLR. Okay, that is one major option. Then at the same time, so further I'm just going through some of the advanced options. Hope you will be able to understand and follow them. So you have this something called white balance. So what do you mean by white balance? With the help of this picture, you may be able to understand some of the white balance. So this is majorly represented as WB in your camera, WB, which stands for white balance. Okay. So what is it white balance mean? Say for example, so every light will have some temperature. Okay, so we measure temperature in Kelvin, right? This particular value K is nothing but Kelvin, light temperature. So say for example, if it is something like a yellow light we are using, yellow or something like a tungsten light we are using, the temperature falls somewhere around 2500 to 3000, or else 3000 to 4000 sometimes. Okay, or else if it is something like a uh, tube light or LED light or something like that, it will fall from something around 4000 to 500, 5000. If it is a flash light, means external flash or internal flash on your camera, so that particular lighting falls somewhere here, 5000 to 5500. So means which is called best daylight. So means flashes produce daylight. Okay, means 5500 to 5000 to 5500 Kelvin light is produced by our external or internal flashes in the camera, or else even wireless flashes also produce the same light temperature. Then at the same time you have sunlight here, sunlight or daylight we can say. So daylight is produced somewhere here. So 5500 to 6500 we call it as daylight, means if it is a cloudy day or sunny day, the light will be somewhere around 5500 to 6000. If it is something like a bluish, say for example, as soon as the values are increasing towards higher end, you can see the colors here changing to blue, right? So if it is a cloudy day or shady day, it will be somewhere around 6500 to 8000. Okay, even if it is even bluer, so it will be even more, like something like 10,000 to 15,000 value will be there. Okay, so why we require this white balance setting? Say usually when we are capturing inside a function hall or inside a wedding or inside some event, if you are doing event photography, usually lights will be of video lights will be there. So something like yellow video lights will be there, or white video lights will be there sometimes. Okay. So say for example, if it is a yellow video light, that will be somewhere around 2500 to 4000 temperature will be there. So something like this. Okay. So at that particular situation, if I want to capture the true colors of the subject, so I have to set my white balance somewhere in between this. Means custom white balance I can set it, or else I can use this particular option which is ready-madely available in my camera. Something like tungsten. There is a option called tungsten. So there I can keep and capture the picture so that I can get accurate results of accurate colors of my subject. Say for example, when you are shooting for some, if you are shooting for some textile industry or some product related to textile or garmenting or modeling or something like that. Okay. At that particular situation, say for example, if I'm using this temperature and I am not changing my white balance means, so entirely I'll be getting the picture in yellow shade, so which they won't accept it. Okay, it has to be true color. Means say for example, whatever we are getting at 5000 temperature, so that is what we call it as true color or else daylight conditions. And we have to manage that we will be able to get the true colors of the picture. Or else I'll give you one more example of the same. Say for example, in this particular situation, AWB is nothing but auto white balance. Okay, so this is daylight, this is shady light, cloudy light, tungsten light, and flashlight and fluorescent light. And you have one more option which is also called custom white balance. So in custom white balancing, you can customize the white balancing depending on your requirement. Means if you are not happy with these settings, these presets which are available inside your camera, you can use this custom option where you can change the color temperature according to your requirement. Okay. So the same situation, say for example, if it is auto white balancing, so this is different. Daylight, it is different. So tungsten, it is different. More blues came up. Like that, if you keep on changing white balancing, at one point of time, depending on your light conditions, you will get the accurate colors of the picture. So this is all to create the natural colors of the picture. It is, say for example, most of the weddings or events you must have seen, pictures will be a bit yellowish in shade, where it is not correct. Okay, so pictures has to be exactly in the same color. Say for example, to check out, bride will be wearing some color saree. Say for example, a blue color saree, and if you are throwing a yellow light onto her, it will reflect some other color. Okay, so with that which is not proper while you are shooting. So at that particular situation, you have to adjust your white balance to certain temperature where you can capture your pictures properly. Okay, so most of the time people like as a beginner you can keep it in auto white balance so that camera can understand according to light situations it keeps on changing. But as a professional, always we keep on changing white balance depending on the situation. Means you have to adjust white balance on depending on the situation. Say for example, if it is cloudy, so you have to put it in cloudy so that it captures proper colors. If it is daylight, full daylit light, so we'll be keeping it in daylight situation where it captures beautiful pictures in daytime. Okay, so just remember that colors to change the to acquire the proper colors in our image, we'll be using this white balance setting to change it. Okay, so that is something about white balance. Okay, so apart from white balance, we have so these are some of the this is one of the professional options which is available. So further moving, we'll just try to understand what is lighting. So different types of lighting. Okay. So photography wise lighting, if we say lighting, we have two types of lighting usually we use. So as a beginner, you will be using two types of lights. Say, two types of lights are nothing but natural light as well as if you have flash, you'll be using artificial lighting, something like flash or strobes. Okay. The ambient light, we call it as ambient light as well. So ambient light is nothing but natural light. So these are all natural light taken pictures. But whereas artificial light means strobes. So these are all called strobe lights, where we use them in studio as well as sometimes we use them in outdoor also with the help of batteries. If you are shooting some outdoor portfolios or outdoor couple shoots or something like that, we'll be using battery operated flashes outdoor. Okay. So this is again external flash, so which can be kept on the camera or on the side of the camera. You can just keep it and you can capture pictures. So artificial lights like strobes, even these days LED lights have came up for photography. Say for example, in the back side of me, you can see this also. So there is one LED and there is one more LED light which is having around 600 LEDs each. Means where I can use it for photography as well as I can use it for videography as well. So which produces continuous lighting. Okay, so they are beautiful. Okay, so that is something basic about lighting in photography. And apart from that, we have something called raw, a raw picture. So most of the professionals, they talk about raw pictures, right? So raw is nothing but raw is a file format which is understood by, this is something called a digital negative. Raw we call it as, here you have a definition. So raw image files are sometimes called as digital negatives, as they fulfill the same role as negatives in film industry. So usually in film industry, like when we have these film days, color film days, so they used to process it in different types of chemicals to get the proper picture. Okay, so it all depends on processing skills. Okay, so if they are able to process it well with different types of chemicals, you will be able to get the proper picture. Okay, so but in digital cameras, so we have an option called raw capability, raw file format. Okay, so what is raw file format? So raw, what do you mean by raw? Raw material, raw. Okay, raw is nothing but which is understood in camera. Raw is nothing but which is understood, like which is directly captured by your camera sensor without compression. Usually we use a format called JPG, right? JPEG or JPG file format, right? To capture in our mobiles or even in DSLR cameras also we use JPG file format as a default. But there is one more file format which is called raw file format. So raw file format helps a lot in uh, higher quality, in producing higher quality of image. So why we use raw, you can understand. So it is not dot raw, okay? So raw has got different formats. I'll brief you further. So why we use, as a professional, most of the time, not most of the time, 100% we use raw file format only. Okay. So why we use raw file format? Look, to get higher levels of quality. So means JPG is a format which is compressed by camera. Okay. The raw file format is which is called uncompressed file format. Say for example, if I compare the picture of JPG and raw file format, compare the sizes, means compare the size in MBs. Usually raw will have a typical picture which is captured in 20 megapixel or 24 megapixel camera. A raw will fold about 25 to 30 MB of each picture, whereas the same picture in JPG will be having around 7 to 10 MB maximum. Means raw is handling more data which is uncompressed, which is directly understood by the sensor, which is directly understood by the sensor. But JPG, it is by the sensor only, but later on it is compressed and stored. But whereas raw file format is, it is uncompressed file format. Okay, raw is uncompressed file format where you can process it later. Process it later on with the help of some softwares like Lightroom or some other softwares. Okay, so then at the same time, recording greater levels of brightness. Of course, when we are using different types of settings, we try to capture different levels of brightness. But at the same time, maybe sometimes we may have created some mistakes in some of the situations. So at that particular time, you can control this brightness levels if you have a raw file format. Then at the same time, dramatically overexposed or underexposed image can be color correction, or overexposed images or underexposed. So we have seen some examples of overexposed and underexposed images, right? So those can be corrected very easily with the help of if you are shooting in raw file format. In raw file format, you can easily control overexposed or underexposed photographs very easily. So when do we require this type of situation? Say for example, I'm shooting inside some hall, and suddenly my subject came outside the wall, and I forgot to change the settings. At that situation, I just clicked the picture, and I could not able to change the settings immediately. So picture may come as overexposed. At that particular situation, I can slightly decrease the brightness levels so that I can get a proper picture. Then at some situations, say while event is going on, so I click multiple pictures. but some of the pictures my flash is not fired somehow. At that particular situations also I can just if I'm shooting in raw file format, I can just adjust the brightness and levels of values. Okay, then it is not that possible in JPG file format. Slightly it is possible, but when compared to the 100%, it justifies. Okay, easily adjust white balance. You have just seen the white balance, right? If you are unable to adjust white balance during the shoot, you can easily adjust your white balance if you have a raw file in your hand. So get better details. So details, texture wise details also you can get very better details. And non-destructive editing. Say for example, when you are editing with the help of Lightroom software, something like that, you can very easily edit the pictures. Get better prints. So when you have raw file format, you can get better prints also. Why? Because it is uncompressed file format. You can get better prints. So select color space and outputs. So outputs will be very good when compared to JPG file format. Have an efficient workflow. So workflow wise also, if you have raw pictures, you can capture very good pictures. And it's a pro option. Of course, it's a pro option. Why? Because most of the professionals use this raw file format. So further, I suggest you to switch on to raw file format, because as I told you, all these options like adjustment, editing, so majorly editing. So these days, editing plays a major role in creating digital pictures. Okay. So if you are capturing in raw file format, it may be of any type of image. So you can edit them very well in post-processing softwares like Lightroom or Luminar or Photoshop or any other softwares. Okay. So try to switch to raw file format. So these are some of the raw file formats depending on your camera manufacturer. If it is Canon, it will be CR2, and if it is Panasonic, it is RW2. If it is Nikon, it is NEF. Kodak, you have Pentax, Fuji. So these are all different types of cameras. So these are extensions of your files. So instead of .jpg, you will be getting this NEF. Okay, and in your camera, so this is the beauty of RAW. Say for example, if you capture JPG, it will be something like this. If you capture, I'll give you more examples also. So here you have in your camera, you will be having this particular option. So here you can see these options in your camera. If you go on to your file settings in your camera menu, you will be having these particular options. So it can also, your camera can also capture RAW plus JPG also. So if it is something like an emergency, you need the JPG pictures, you can capture RAW picture as well as JPG pictures with a good quality. So L is larger quality, M is medium quality, S is smaller quality. Okay, RAW plus JPEG. So these are the JPEGs actually. L, M, S are JPG file formats. Means along with RAW file format, you can also capture JPG files also. Okay, so I'll give you one more beautiful example of one file here. So here you can see a picture with where it's captured with the help of raw file. So this is a raw file and this is a JPG file. If you capture your JPG file, it will be like this. And if you are capturing a raw file and further processing it, you can get this type of beautiful image out of your edited version. So this is how professionals work. They capture in raw file format. Later on, if the colors are not available, or else if they are unable to capture the colors because of lighting or some other mistakes, later on with the help of editing softwares, you can adjust them well. You can increase particular color. Say for example, here greens are increased, here blues are increased. Okay, slightly lighting is also increased. You can have individual color control, like individual controls over your picture, like individual colors you can control, individually lighting you can control, overexposed areas you can control, shadows you can control. You can control all parts of image if you are capturing in a raw file format. So from now onwards, try to capture in raw file format. Further, we'll also plan to have a session on post processing. So maybe we'll just see either Lightroom or some other software will try to host a similar workshop on Lightroom and or else on a Luminar software. Luminar is another software which is very similar to Lightroom. We are actually tested it, and it is very good when compared to Lightroom. Okay, we'll see how it goes on. Okay, so that is something about raw file format. Okay, so further going, we have some basics about lenses. So what type of lens? So so lens, in the sense, usually when we buy our camera, we'll be having a basic kit lens, right? So that is fine to capture day-to-day landscapes and basic captures and other things. So further, if you want to move on to profession or hobby-wise also, if you want to improvise your picture quality and other things, you will be requiring a set of different lenses to experiment or do. Say, for example, if you are a wildlife photographer, or else if you are an architecture, if you want to become an architecture photographer, or if you want to become a product photographer. So depending on your requirement, you will be requiring different types of lenses. Okay. Say for example, Nikon or Canon or Sony produces a number of lenses, like 150 to 200 types of lenses they produce. Okay. It is not that required to buy all these lenses. Okay. So depending on your profession or depending on your choice, you can choose 2 or 3 lenses. Okay. So here, if you just see classify some of the lenses, you have wide angle lenses, faster primes, telephoto lenses, premium glass lenses, and macro lenses. So this is a basic classification. Apart from that, you have wildlife photography lenses and other lenses also. So wide angle lenses to capture wide pictures. So like architectures or landscapes or anything, if you want to capture, you can capture with the help of wide angle lens. Then you have faster primes. Most of the time, these faster primes are used by professional photographers to create beautiful blur pictures. Like in faster primes, you have, say for example, in wider, you have something like 8 mm wider, which is called a fisheye lens. And you have 14 mm wider. Say for example, I'll just show you one 14 mm lens here. I have it with me. This is a Samyang lens. So this is a Samyang 14 mm lens. You can just see it here. So this is a Samyang 14 mm lens. So this is a manual lens. Okay. So this is a prime lens. So this is a 14 mm means this can only see wider. This doesn't have any zoom option in this. Okay. So primes in the sense, here I have a 50 mm lens, as well as here I have a 85 mm lens also. So 85 1.4. Okay. So like that, you'll be having different types of prime lenses. So then at the same time, you have telephoto lenses. Telephoto is nothing but zoom lenses. Most of the time, like the candid photographers or wildlife photographers, they use telephoto zoom lenses. Whereas the zoom varies from 50 mm to or 70 mm to 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. So like that, the zoom keep on increasing, 150 to 600 or 500 to 200 to 500 or 100 to 400. But depending on the manufacturer and depending on the requirement, the zoom option and capabilities keep on changing. Okay. So those are the different types of lenses available in the market. Then at the same time, you have something called premium glass lenses here, right? So here you have something called premium glass lens here. So what do you mean by premium glass lens? So premium glass lens is nothing but where you have where your aperture will be stable and zoom can work. This is something like a prime lens only again, but where it will be having a zoom option also. Something like 2.8 lenses. 2.8 lenses in the sense, so your f number will be stable at 2.8, and you can zoom and zoom out also. Something like 2472.8 or else 1752.8 or else 70 to 200 2.8 means at 70 it will be stable, and at the same time 200 also it will be at 2.8 only. So most of the time it will be used by wedding photographers and event photographers. Then you have macro lenses here. So macro lenses are nothing but where you can go for macro photography and product photography, where our naked eyes can't see the details. So there we will be requiring macro lenses. Okay. So further, I have some examples of filters here. These are different filters available for your camera, where different colored filters as well as different types of filters. Say for example, you have ND filter, GND filter, ultraviolet filter. So these are all additional extensions to enhance your pictures. Okay. So that's something about filters. So apart from that, we also have something like I'll also tell you some composition techniques. Okay. So composition techniques are nothing but where you'll be having this particular rule called rules of third. Okay. Composition techniques, which we call it as rules of third. So rules of third is nothing but, say for example here, if you take this as your frame, okay, if you are taking this as a frame, it is divided into three parts. Okay, and these intersecting points, you can see it here, right? You have four intersecting points. So we'll be placing our subject in these intersecting points to make it more creative. Okay, the concept is simple here. So place your subject along the lines or nearer to the intersecting points. So that is what is called rules of third. I'll give you some examples of the same. Say in this particular image, if I capture it as a center one, this won't be more interesting, right? If I make it as a vertical frame and capture something like a vertical picture, so this won't be more interesting. So I made a place, so with the help of rules of third, so I have moved my subject towards right and I have shifted my frame towards seaside. So where I can show you more depth, something like I can show you stones here, I can show you sea, I can show you some background here and as well as sky. So it creates more, it will be more interesting. Then at the same time, I have more examples, something like this or something like this. So here you have to understand one more point. So depending on which side the subject faces, say for example, this frog is looking towards this side. So I have moved my frame towards this and my empty frame towards the other side. Okay. So I have more examples here. So my subject is looking towards this side. So I've I have to leave my space towards this area. And there is one more example. So like this, rules of third plays major role in composing your photographs. So whenever you are capturing your picture next time, just try to follow this rule called rules of third. So try to place your subject in these particular intersecting points, so somewhere here or here or here or here, depending on your subject facing. Remember that. Okay, that is very important. Okay, so try to capture in these rules of third. Most of the professional photographers, if you observe, they follow these particular rules of third to create more interesting in the frame. Okay, so that is something about rules of third. So further we'll be learning some tips to take greater pictures. Okay, so this is applicable to any type of photography. So even rules of third is also applicable to any type of photography. It can be mobile photography, point and shoot, or DSLR, or whatever the medium of camera which you are using. Even these techniques are also applicable for all types of camera, not only for DSLR. Okay. Uh, so here, tip number one, like look your subject in the eyes. Usually, most of the time, we keep far off the subject and we'll try to zoom in. So just go close to the subject and try to focus on the eyes of the subject. Okay, so that your picture will be very sharper and clear. Then at the same time, stabilize yourself. So most of the people, as I told you, the holding techniques of your DSLR. So you have to hold and make your camera more stable. Of course, we have a VR mechanism inside our camera. Apart from VR, now vibration reduction, you have to make it more stable. So with the help of your hands and with the help of your taking by support of some other things, you have to make it more stable. Then at the same time, these are some rules where you can hold your camera properly, how to hold your camera properly. So here you can see him like he is just holding his hands here, like getting support from his body and making it more stable. So here he is supporting his body again here, and he is making it more stable. Here you can see with the help of his feet, he is making himself bend and make it more stable and capture the picture. Okay. And at the same time, whenever you're capturing some landscapes or some architectural photographs, try to uh, create a depth in the picture. Say, for example, if I'm just capturing this particular landscape, it may not be more interesting. So when I have added some subject here, it is creating more depth in this picture. Even in this picture also, when if I capture this picture directly without this particular subject, this will be just like a plain picture. When I have added this subject in this picture, it is creating a bit depth in the picture. So try to create some pictures like this. At the same time, shoot during golden hours. So what do you mean by golden hours? So most of the people like to shoot during sun setting or sun rising, right? So where you have this yellowish or orange or golden type of lighting will be there. So at that particular situation, the light will be softer as well as yellowish light will be there to create beautiful pictures. So try to shoot in low light like evening or early morning conditions. Then at the same time, so try to travel a bit more. So travel and find good locations for your photography. So just you have to travel a bit more to capture better pictures. So so most of the time when we go on to different types of locations, so we end up with the routine locations, right? So try to go a bit beyond your limitations to find out locations so that your picture will be unique when compared to others pictures. So even when we go on to our tours also in HDPC, we try to go to some isolated locations or some new locations to find out more beautiful places and more different angles to capture the same place. Okay, so that has to be followed most of the time. Then at the same time, planning. So planning plays a major role in photography. So when, say for example, if you want to capture any event, or else if you want to capture a picture, a small picture, any small picture, so you have to plan it well. So what has to be planned? Like what is the concept I'm capturing? So means what story I'm going to tell to the public related to this particular picture, or else what is that I'm creative ideas I'm using? What is the creative type of lighting I'm using here? At the same time, you have to visualize it well in advance before capturing, so that you have to plan it accordingly. Say for example, I'll give you one example of our recent trip to Goa. Say before, like instantly we didn't go there and we directly didn't shoot the pictures. So first we plan it. Why? Because first beforehand we go to the place, we explore the location, we check out the possibilities, we check out the permissions there, whether to shoot or not. Then at the same time, we check out the lighting conditions there, like so what type of lighting conditions are suitable and what time is better for that particular location. So means sun rising and sun setting time. Then at the same time, season in the sense whether monsoon we have to go or whether we have to go in a summertime or monsoon time. Like every location we go has got some importance, right? So depending on that season only, depending in that season only, we have to go to that particular location. Okay, so this all planning has to be there. So then later on, what concept you are creating there. So what type of concept shoot you are doing there. Then what are the costumes of the model and what is the color and concept of the model we are shooting there. then who is the model, what is the skin tone of the model, then at the same time according to her skin tone and according to ambience light, what type of flashes we have to carry, what type of lighting sources we have to carry, what type of reflectors we have to carry, what type of lenses we have to carry. So all this planning we do well in advance and we go to location. It may be a fashion shoot, it may be a pre-wedding shoot, it may be a wedding shoot, it may be a kid photography shoot or whatever it may be. So first planning is very important in photography. So without planning it is not possible to capture beautiful pictures. So randomly we can capture, of course, when we are into some scenery, something like when we go into Ladakh and see places, everywhere you find sceneries and whatever you capture that will become a scenery. That is okay. So there also we plan it. So at what time, which location looks more beautiful? At which time or which date you'll be able to see. Say for example, we made a beautiful plan for Ladakh this year, but because of Corona, we are just postponing it. We planned it for June first week, but as Corona is there, we have postponed it to maybe September or October. September we may be going. We'll be updating that. But for that also, we had a very good plan for that. So like at which dates we have to travel and which parts we have to travel, and if I want to capture Milky Way or star trails or something like that, which time is possible and what location and what date, full moon day or no moon day, something like that. We plan and we go to certain locations to capture beautiful pictures. Okay, and which mode of transport and where to stay. All these things are well planned. Then only it is possible to get greater pictures as a photographer. Okay, so to capture a small photograph or bigger photograph or any photograph, planning is very important. Without planning, just randomly you can't capture the beautiful pictures. Okay, just remember that. Okay, so further moving, framing. So framing is also one more important concept in photography. So something like how you frame the picture. So here you can see the example how beautiful it is, how beautiful it is framed in between two hills, water reflections as well as the sky and the landscape and everything is planned and shot very well. And at the same time, frame inside one more frame. So here you have one frame. So inside you have one more frame. Okay, like that. So here one more example of frame inside frame, something like that. You have to plan your shot well in advance. Not well in advance. So like depending on that, depending on your framing, also your picture will be beautiful. Then going to more techniques, use plain backgrounds. So most of the time, don't pull rods or trees or out of your heads or photographs. Just try to use some plain background, something like this. And at the same time, use of flash outdoor. So most of the people don't use flash outdoor, but you can see the difference in these two pictures when flash is used outdoor. So here you can see all shadows falling on her face. But when I'm using external flash, so I can just avoid all these external shadows and other things with the help of external flash. Okay, so you have to use external flash outdoor. That's why most of the professionals use external flash outdoor wirelessly or on camera also. So move close to your picture. So just close means you have to walk close towards the picture. So you may be having zoom lens or you may not be having zoom lens, but you have to go a bit close to the subject so that the details will be captured beautifully. Okay. Then at the same time, know your flash range. So every flash has got a range. Okay. It may be on camera flash or it may be a off camera flash or else a external flash. So they'll be having some range. Okay, so that range differs from flash to flash. Say for example, on camera flash, pop-up flash will have certain distance like it can throw light up to 1 to 2 meters or 3 meters maximum. So in these pictures, it is a on-camera flash. So where in the above picture you can see it is very dark. Flash is falling here only. When the subjects are moved to closer, a bit closer, when the camera is moved closer or subjects are brought a bit forward, you can see very clear picture. Like that, every picture, every external flash also will have certain range depending on the size of the flash. Some flashes reach 2 meters, some 3, some 4 meters, some 5 meters, some flashes directly throw onto the subject. So depending on that, you have to decide your flash range. Accordingly, you have to capture the picture. And at the same time, try to capture some pictures vertically. Most of the people capture pictures horizontally, but sometimes you also can capture pictures vertically. Okay, so be your picture director. So most of the times, group pictures we keep ourselves like this, right? So try to be your picture director. Try to be more creative while you are capturing pictures. Maybe you must have seen some of the wedding photographers and candid photographers or pre-wedding photographers making them different poses and different creative poses. So like that, you have to be creative. You have to be your own picture director. Otherwise, it will be like a plain picture. Okay. So that is something about some techniques. So apart from that, when you are buying accessories for your camera, I have some guidelines. So if you are buying some memory cards, if you want to upgrade yourself with, so usually like with your DSLR, you will be getting some 16 GB or 4 GB or 8 GB memory card. So which are a bit of slow memory cards you will be getting, or these days they are giving a bit good memory cards also. But these are not enough for us, right? So at this particular situation, you need to upgrade your card. So when you are planning to upgrade your card, go for a professional cards which are having higher read and write speed. Okay. So in memory cards, you have something called class. Okay. So you have to buy a memory card which is class 10 and above. Okay. So class 10 memory card means it will be above 90 Mbps. So 90 MB per second, 90 MB per second and above. So even some of the premium cards like they'll be having up to 150 or 200 Mbps also. So some memory cards will also have inbuilt recovery mechanism also. So something like these cards. So these Extreme Pro cards will also have some inbuilt recovery mechanism. Say for example, when you are into wedding situation or some very important event, if your card is corrupted or at the end of the event if the card is corrupted, it's the worst situation you'll face in your life as a professional photographer. So always try to buy very good memory cards, even if you're traveling to some good places. Say for example, there is a guy who traveled with us to Ladakh before last year. So he came with this type of basic cards. We told him to buy a very good cards, but as he said, he wanted to buy too many number of cards, so he ended up with basic cards. So uh, you can just imagine. So he captured all the pictures in the a bit low end card, and at the end of the trip, the memory card gave error, and all his memories have gone. Whatever the beautiful memories he captured during his Ladakh trip have gone. Okay, so try to buy a better memory card. Means which is having it will be a bit expensive when compared to a regular memory card. It will be double the price of regular memory card. Okay, so you have to buy a better memory card when you are upgrading. Then at the same time, what to buy and where to buy. So whether to buy it buy used stuff. So when you are upgrading lenses or any other things, you can buy them used sometimes. Used also you can buy. But how reliable are used ones? Say for example, if you are buying a body of a camera, so usually how you decide the camera is good. So it will have something called shutter count. Okay, so you have to find the shutter count, how many number of shutters it has clicked. So means you must be having a doubt now. So it is a digital camera? Will it have a shutter? Is there any restriction of shutters? Yes, digital cameras also have shutter restriction. Why? Because the shutter, how many times it can go up down up down up down like that. Say for example, it has got some life. Means around, say for example, if it is a basic DSLR, it will last up to 1 lakh pictures, 1 lakh to 1.5 lakh. If it is a professional DSLR, 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs maximum. Then later on you have to change the shutter. So means you can identify the shutter count with the help of the last picture capture. Or else if you are buying a camera, used camera, just click the last picture, take the memory card out, and there are some online sites available where you can upload shutter count identification sites are available. You can just browse it for Google. My camera shutter count or camera shutter count. There are some sites. You can just upload the last picture and it will give you the entire data of that particular camera. What is the number of captures it has already made. Means if it is below 50,000, you can buy. If it is above 50,000, accordingly you can bargain and buy. Okay. So apart from that, aftermarket products. So there are various aftermarket products available in the market. So apart from Canon to Canon, Nikon to Nikon, so there are some aftermarket products available in the market, something like Tamron, Sigma, Tokina, and Samyang. So these are apart from this also there are many other manufacturers. These are the major manufacturers of aftermarket lenses. So means they can also give you so they give you almost the similar quality of the brand lens which you buy. Say for example, this particular lens in Nikon or Canon, so this is a 70 to 200 2.8 lens. So this will cost you in Nikon or Canon around 1.6 lakhs or 1.7 lakhs. But whereas in Tamron it costs you around 90,000 to 1 lakh rupees. Okay. Then at the same time, in Sigma also it is similar. In Sigma it costs you around 70 to 80,000. Same 70 to 100. Like that, price variation will be a lot when compared to aftermarket branded lenses and aftermarket. And image quality will be almost like 95%. You can get the same image quality, or sometimes even 100% image quality also you can get out of these lenses. Okay, you just need to decide which lens you need to buy according to your budget. Then at the same time, flashes, aftermarket flashes. Usually branded flashes will be a bit expensive, whereas you can buy aftermarket flashes these brands. Aftermarket flashes, you have different brands like Nissin, Digitech, Simpex, Godox. So Godox is playing major role these days in aftermarket flashes. Why? Because they are coming out with rechargeable, inbuilt rechargeable lithium polymer batteries. Okay. Okay. So in aftermarket flashes, when you are buying an external flash, so you have to decide flashes are of different kinds available here. So here you have manual flash as well as TTL flash. TTL is nothing but auto flash. Okay. So manual flash in the sense you need to control it manually. Means whatever the amount of light is coming out of this particular light, you have to control it manually. So there will be an option in the back side of the camera. So where you have to adjust that and accordingly you need to control the light. But whereas in TTL flashes, it is automatic. Means according to your aperture and according to your shutter speed, it will give you the amount of light. And at the same time, of course, intensity wise, you can increase and decrease according to your requirement. But it calculates according to your aperture and shutter speed and it throws the light accordingly. In these flashes, price varies from say manual flashes, you can get it for 2 to 4,000 rupees. and auto flashes from 3 to 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, 15, 20, 30, up to 30,000 also there are flashes. But aftermarket flashes you can get good one for around 5 to 6,000 rupees also. Or else if you are able to invest, you can invest on this particular flash which is called Godox with a round head which is having inbuilt battery with all auto option and wireless capabilities also. So this costs you around 15,000 rupees. Okay. So that is something about flashes, aftermarket flashes. Then finally, not but the least, you have are you fit enough to be a professional photographer? Why fitness? So fitness is for stability. Okay. So study in capturing photographs. So stability is the most important factor in capturing pictures and handling your camera photos. Say for example, if you want to handle this type of sports photography lens or wildlife photography lens or even wedding photography lenses, so they'll be huge, very heavy. So something around 3 to 5 kgs of lenses will be there. So for 1 or 2 hours it is fine. So continuously holding for a complete day. Say for example, if I am in a wildlife photography trip and I'm holding this particular lens for the entire day, I should be fit enough. Otherwise, in another by 1 hour, I'll be my hands will pain a lot to hold this type of lenses and cameras. Okay. Then at the same time, fitness is very important for a photographer because say for example if you are shooting an event or if you are shooting a wedding, so it will be there for at about 5 to 6 hours, right? So 5 to 6 hours you have to be patient, and you will be holding that camera for 5 to 6 hours, that heavy camera with flash, battery packs and bigger lenses and additional accessories, and all you will be holding for about 6 to 10 hours, sometimes 12 hours also. So there are some weddings we have done for 12 continuous hours. Small break, again continuous hours. Okay. So like that, if you are to do certain type of, or else if you are in a trip to some trekking location, if you are not fit enough during that particular trek to capture beautiful pictures of landscapes, it is not possible. So practically, it is my experience. That fitness is very important for any photographer. Any photographer. It may be a wildlife photographer, it may be a wedding photographer, it may be a travel photographer, whoever it may be. Why? Because depending on your fitness only, your patience depends, and depending on your patience and fitness only, your picture, your creativity and pictures differ. Okay. So try to be fit and try to practice photography well at home. So this is the best time you can practice. Why? Because you have a lot of time now to practice at home, and you can share pictures, whatever you have captured. We'll try to review them. Uh, so further, so that's the end of the session. Further, if you have any doubts, you can just make a note of my number here, or if you want to share pictures, you can just WhatsApp me or you can mail me, so that I can just review your pictures and get back to you where you are facing difficulties. Okay. So if you have any doubts right now, you can just type in the section below. Like in the live chat window, you can type your doubts. So I'll be answering your questions from here. Okay. So I'll be here till 1 o'clock. You can just point and shoot your questions here. So I'll be replying online here. Okay. Okay. Hello. Okay. Here, actually, in my streaming window, I'm not able to get questions. Let me check out your doubts here. So somebody asked me, could you please suggest Reddy Garu? You have asked me some. Okay, I'll read out the question. Could you please suggest some lens for Nikon D750 for kids and portrait photography? Okay, sir. Usually for Nikon D750, you must be having what is the lens you got? I would like to know. Mostly, I think 24 120 you may be having. If you want to capture portraits, you can buy 50 mm 1.8 or 1.4, or else 80 mm 85 mm 1.4 is also good for portrait and kids photography. 85 mm 1.4 or 1.8, depending on your budget, you can just buy that lens. Thank you, Ramireddy Garu. I hope it is useful for everybody. Shivakumar Garu, you have asked a question about so how about processing JPG images using Lightroom? Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Processing of JPG images in Lightroom is possible, but you won't be getting the results what you get in raw file format. Okay, Vamshi Krishna Garu, you have asked a question. How about low shutter speed but focusing on a subject like a racing car or bike? Okay, got your question. Like you want to capture a moving car in a low shutter speed, right? So you have to track the subject. Say, for example, if you are holding the camera, let me just hold the camera. So you have to keep shutter speed low, and you have to click and hold, move, track the subject like this. While you are clicking, you have to move the camera. Okay, it is better you keep it on a tripod or else be stable and capture the camera. Okay, so his question is like how to capture a moving car with slow motion. Means that speed effect you will be getting in the back and front, right? The blurry effect, and subject has to be stable, right? So that is possible with 40, maybe around 30 or 40 shutter speed. You can give 1 by 30 or 1 by 40, and you can just pan the camera towards a moving subject and capture the picture. You will get that particular effect what you are looking. Okay. Any other questions? Somebody has given me a question. I want to start wedding photography, but is it good to start with crop censored camera? Yes, it is good to start with crop sensor camera if you have a very good lens and good flash. Okay, why? Because lighting is the major factor deciding the quality of the picture. Okay, if the lighting is good and if you have a good lens like a 2.8 lens or prime lens, you can start your wedding career with crop censored camera also. But competitively, like people these days are asking about cameras, so you have to uh, justify yourself with them. Why? Because these days customers are very particular about cameras. I don't know whether they know about the technology behind the camera, but they're asking for full frame cameras like Sony A7R2, A7R3, A7R4, or 5D, 5D Mark 4, Mark, like that they are asking. Okay, that if that is not there, you can always do. Why? Because I have some of my friends, very senior photographers, they still use crop censored cameras, like they use 7100 as their all-in-one camera for all events with a very good flash combining with. Sorry guys, I missed all your messages in my window. It was not coming, and now I can check it in my laptop. I can see all your message. Thank you for joining. Good morning, and now it is good afternoon. Shivakumar Garu saying that. Thank you, Shivakumar Garu. Yeah, we have our Facebook group, Shivakumar Garu. Like you can just go and type Hyderabad Digital Photography Club. We have our Facebook group with around 30,000 members, where we'll be posting regular events as well as upcoming events. Even you can share your photographs. They'll be reviewed by most of the photographers. Udaya, hi Udaya. Thank you for joining. Yeah, definitely. You can always get back to me related to your doubts and questions, whatever you have. Lakshmi Narayan Garu, thank you. Okay, guys, that's where we come to the conclusion. Thank you all for joining. Further, if you have any doubts, you can always WhatsApp me, or you can write to me. We'll try to do some more sessions like this. And at the same time, we are also planning to do certain review videos, as well as different creative techniques of doing photography, like we do it in our tools and other things. We'll also put all those videos. We are also editing all our tour videos. Yes, now we have got a lot of time to uh, do our tour videos. So people have been asking me when it will come, when it will come. So now it will come up, starting from our Ladakh trip to all our Mahabaleshwar trip, our uh, different trips like we have gone, right? Goa trips, 2 or 3 Goa trips, and all will be releasing soon in a week or 10 days. Okay, keep watching, keep following our channel. We'll be posting more soon. Okay, recently only we have activated our channel. From long time we didn't had time to look at our channel only. So recently, as we have got some time, I'm just checking more possibilities here to communicate and contact with you all. We'll be sharing more amazing stuff on this particular channel. See you soon, guys. Thank you. Have a safe day and stay at home. Bye.